guys, how you going? I'm doing this one from my phone today because I'm in bed a bit unwell. So I wanted to say thank you to a few people. Kathy, Charlotte from South Australia, what a time to be alive. Yvette, Travis and Rebecca, God bless, from Las Vegas. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate everything that you guys do to help me, whether you send me information, whether you support the channel. I appreciate whether you watch or listen. I appreciate every one of you. So okay, let's get on with this. Leaked Crown Law advice to police, and this is from New Zealand. On Monday, we published emails leaked to us that showed that the police had sought and obtained a Crown Law legal opinion on precisely what they could and could not do under the government's pandemic lockdown edicts. The emails showed that police believed on the advice from Crown Law that there was very little they could do other than ask people nicely to comply with the edicts. We have now been leaked the Crown Law advice that Attorney General David Parker, Police Commissioner Andy Costa and former Police Commissioner Mike Bush all refused to release to the public, nor to the Epidemic Response Committee chaired by Simon Bridges. That advice shows that definitely for the first 9 days of the lockdown, the police and government acted ultra vires, acting or done beyond one's legal power or authority. The letter dated 27th of March 2020, sent to Bill Peoples, Police National Manager, Legal Services from Bronner McKenna, the Crown Council is explicit in its advice regarding enforcement of the lockdown. The Crown Law reference for those wanting to OIA is POL 055-2475. The letter confirms that police sought advice on the extent of police powers to enforce the government's COVID-19 home isolation campaign that commenced at midnight on the 25th of March 2020. Isolation campaign. The summary in the letter states precisely what powers the police had at the date of writing this letter. As at today's date, police have the following powers to enforce the isolation campaign. 3.1 Non-coercive community policing powers. 3.2 Following the 25th of March 2020 order issued by the Medical Officer of Health, MEDOH, under S70 (1) of the Health Act, 1956 Health Act, the power under S71A of the Health Act to do anything reasonably necessary to assist in ensuring compliance with the MEDOH order, and 3.3 the power under S71A of the Health Act to enforce individualised directions issued by a MEDOH under S70 (F) of the Health Act. 4. In situations not covered by the S71M order or an individualised S71F direction, police do not have the power to detain individuals, stop vehicles, enter property, search individuals or property in order to enforce the isolation campaign. 5. As a state of emergency has been declared and for its duration, police also have the potential to have recourse to certain enforcement powers under the Civil Defence and Emergency Management Act 2002, CDEMA, or CDEMA. However, the threshold for the use of these powers is very high. Enforcing general compliance with the isolation campaign is unlikely to meet the high statutory threshold for the exercise of these powers. The CDEMA powers are powers of the last resort, and we recommend that legal advice be sought before their use. Number 6. Standard police powers of stop, search and surveillance must be exercised for their statutory purpose and may not be used to assist in police in the enforcement of the isolation campaign. 7. To minimise legal risk, we recommend that police's non-coercive community policing powers be used to the greatest extent possible in encouraging compliance with the isolation campaign and that resort be made to the S71A powers only when necessary. In layman's terms, the initial 9 days of the lockdown was likely illegal and any police action breached the law. Crown Law explored further regarding the police power actually had and stated, 11. Police may therefore speak to people they encounter about the campaign, inform them about the campaign, inquire as to whether they are complying with the campaign, and request but not direct them to comply with the campaign. 12. However, in the absence of enforceable power under the Health Act discussed below, police officers have no ability to detain non-compliant individuals or otherwise enforce the isolation campaign. Crown Law says that police have no ability to enforce the isolation campaign except for very specific criteria that would be contained with an order under the Health Act, and that is where the issues arise. For the first 9 days at least, there were no prescribed orders with enough specificity to comply with the Health Act requirements, and it is arguable that even the subsequent Health Act order was not specific enough to enable police to enforce the isolation campaign within the law. Crown Law then expands on what the Health Act order must say. 14. The exercise of power under S71A is contingent on the issue of a direction by a Med-OH under S70. Directions issued by a Med-OH in relation to any given activity must be proportionate to the risk posed by that activity. And 16. To date, 2 types of directions have been issued by medical officers of health under S70, individualised isolation directions and generalised directions. Individualised 70, 1F isolation directions. 17. A key power of the Med-OH in the context of the isolation campaign is the ability under S71F to require persons to be isolated or quarantined as he or she thinks fit. And 19. Medical officers of health may also issue individualised directions to a group of individuals where that group is sufficiently identifiable and the issue of the direction is proportionate to the risk proposed by the group. For example, a Med-OH could make an isolation direction to a group of individuals congregating at a particular address for a party, in circumstances where she considers the risk posed by the gathering justifies the imposition of the direction. In the event such a direction is made, police would have the power to enforce it under S71A. In other words, unless a specific direction for an individual or group of individuals has been issued by a Med-OH, then the police can do nothing. Therefore, stopping people paddleboarding or swimming or surfing or playing frisbee at a park was likely to have been illegal unless in each and every instance a health direction was issued specific to that individual or group of individuals. For the generalised directions that were issued on the 25th of March 2020, the police were on very shaky ground. Crown Law explores that further too. 25. Where it is unclear whether a given activity falls within the scope of the order, for example, whether a particular business is essential under the government's guidelines, or whether a particular public place constitutes as an outdoor place of amusement or recreation, we recommend that legal advice is sought if practicable. 26. In the absence of applicable S70 directions, police have no ability to exercise their S71A powers to enforce the isolation campaign. Specifically outside the scope of S71M order or individualised directions, constables have no power to detain persons, no power to enter premises or vehicles, and no power to search premises or vehicles. In the absence of S70 directions, the government is reliant on voluntary compliance by the public with the requested measures. 27. Moreover, arrest powers for offences reliant on the existence of an unlawful act or breach of a legal duty such as criminal nuisance or obstruction of a police officer acting in the execution of her duty are not available in the absence of a legal duty to enforce compliance under S71A. nor do we consider that the power to arrest for disturbing the public peace may be exercised for the enforcement of the isolation campaign. We consider the use of such a power in the absence of a legally binding direction would likely be unlawful. And now this is in New Zealand, and we're talking about Crown land, which is the Commonwealth. So any Commonwealth country, this would apply to. Now, if you're in the US, you have your own constitution, which overrides any of your state mandates. You are free to move. And what they do is unlawful, and they will face the consequences. This is what I mean by, I say on Facebook a lot, it's no longer going to be acceptable to be saying, I was just doing my job. You need to pull your morals out. If you're a police officer, you need to live on your moral and the Constitution. This is really, really interesting, guys. This can be used in any Commonwealth country at least, and I believe the USA with their constitution, because I think we all have constitutions, we are just not aware. Okay, that covers enforcement under the Health Act. Crown law then examines the much higher thresholds under the SEDEMA. I'm just going to call it SEDEMA. The advice contained in the summary is reinforced. 28. The SEDEMA also sets out certain powers available to police when a state of emergency has been declared. 29. The threshold for the use of those powers is very high, and their exercise would require a situation-specific assessment of whether the statutory threshold is met in any given case. Enforcing general compliance with the isolation campaign is unlikely to meet this threshold, where, for example, a threat to life is prerequisite for the exercise of the power. This threat must be immediate. We consider these powers to be measures of last resort and recommend that, where there is doubt as to whether the statutory threshold for their existence is met, legal advice is sought if practicable. The SEDEMA bar sits very high in regard to the exercise of powers it gives. If the government have been relying on this, then they are in serious legal trouble. Arresting someone for congregating in a park does not meet the highest statutory threshold under the SEDEMA. It won't be acceptable to arrest someone for opening their business deemed non-essential. See, that's what I mean. It's going to come back on them. Police, if you are a police officer, if you know police officers, please pass this on to them. Pass the article onto them. You don't have to give them the video. Just pass the article onto them and at least get them to read it and give you their opinion. Okay, a good analogy would be using a .5 caliber rifle to shoot a rabbit. The intent of the act is to deal with an emergency, not get someone out of a park for playing frisbee. Okay. I didn't get that. Okay, hang on a sec. A good analogy would be using a .5 or .50 caliber rifle to shoot a rabbit. Okay, is it overkill? Is that what they're talking about? You don't need that much to shoot a rabbit? Someone let me know down below. I think that's what they mean. I'm not sure. It could perhaps be relied upon in the case of the individual arrested for coughing on people at the supermarket or those who have been spitting on people. Okay. It is intended, for example, to get Auntie Bessie out of her house if she refuses to move after an earthquake, or if a forest fire is about to engulf her house. It's quite humorous. So it appears the government and the police have acted ultra vires. I hope I'm saying ultra vires, and had no real powers to enforce anything. In paragraph 30 of the Crown Law letter, the Crown Counsel, Brona McKenna, is at pains to point out that any use of police powers to evacuate premises, exclude people from vehicles or any premises or place must be only necessary for the prevention of life. She expands further to say that entering premises is only reasonable if the constable believes on reasonable grounds that the action is necessary for saving life, preventing injury or rescuing or removing injured or endangered persons. Likewise, the power to close roads or public places must be in order to prevent or limit the extent of the emergency. She adds that it is likely that it cannot be interpreted to provide a general authorisation to police to close roads or prevent public access to places while the national state of emergency of the current kind is in force. Further, the police cannot use the sedema to direct any person to stop any activity that may cause or substantially contribute to an emergency because the threshold is so high and so fact-specific that it can only be used to avert imminent danger. This is huge. 30.5.1. Activity which involves general non-compliance with the isolation campaign would not meet this threshold, given the power will be interpreted in the light of the existence of the specific powers available to the Med-OH under the Health Act. Crown law then outlines that standard police powers can only be used for their statutory purpose. That is, they can't use powers they have under, for example, the Misuse of Drugs Act to enforce compliance under the Health Act. Or another example used is the use of the Land Transport Act 1988 to stop vehicles. 34. These powers must, however, be exercised in good faith for the purpose of which they were given, and to meet the relevant policy goals of ensuring road safety, there must be no ulterior motive to the use of those powers. Use of the LTA powers to seek to enforce or support the isolation campaign would be unlawful. Crown law advises that standard stop, search and surveillance powers available to police will not assist in enforcing the isolation campaign. No wonder David Parker and the Police Commissioner wanted this kept secret. It is now clear that the first 9 days of the lockdown were outside of the law, and any person or business harassed by police to comply would now likely to be able to have any charges dropped and any damages made good because of the ultra vires actions of the government and the police. The government that breaks its own laws and enforces those illegal actions is no longer democratic. It is now operating in a despotic manner. Despotic. I'm unsure how to say that. The sad fact is that without the actions of whistleblowers bringing this into the open, then the situation would have continued to occur. It is also likely that the entire lockdown under Level 4 and possibly many aspects of Level 3 are still illegal because of the lack of specificity of Health Act directions. An urgent inquiry now needs to be undertaken. The police at least clearly knew that enforcement of the isolation campaign was illegal. There must surely be a paper trail between police, the Prime Minister and the Director General of Health, Ashley Bloomfield, that shows they knew the lockdown was illegal but they proceeded anyway. When governments break their own laws, they must be held to account, and this whole show has been run from both the Prime Minister's office and the office of Ashley Bloomfield. They have prima facie acted illegally and wrecked the economy, businesses and people's lives as a result. They must be held to account. As I said, this is in New Zealand, but I think this applies to most Commonwealth countries. We are Crown owned. Question 3 in question time today showed that the government is sailing on in blind disregard of the law. I won't play that. I'll put the link down below so you can go and read it for yourself, and you can also play the video. This does apply to everybody, I'm telling you now, because we have constitutions and we have things that protect us. We just need to know where to find these things that protect us. Like the Magna Carta, that protects, I think, everyone worldwide. The Prime Minister has admitted she knew about the advice and ignored it. She has intimated that the advice was draft, and she constantly referred to David Parker, the Attorney General. The problem the Prime Minister has is that they are still refusing to release the advice, and so now a principal whistleblower they can hide from it no longer. David Parker, likewise, must be called to account. It is his role to ensure the government adheres to its own rules. He has a copy of the Crown Law advice and he refused to release it. Moreover, he insisted that everything was fine. The Crown Law advice is clear that it was not fine. In fact, the police lacked any proper powers, and any powers they did have could only have come from the medical officer of health. Those directions were so vague as to be unenforceable. A democratic government in breach of its own laws is no longer a democratic government. It's a dictatorship or a police state at the very least. Citizens have every right now to be very angry at their government rather than thankful. And that's it for today, for that. Also, guys, I'm not sure, you might want to look this up, but I heard Trump is on hydroxychloroquine. Let me know if you know about that one too. Yeah, and sorry guys, I'll do better work when I'm feeling a bit better. I'm just a bit unwell at the moment. I wanted to bring this to you though, because this is extremely important. It doesn't matter that it's New Zealand. This can be applied everywhere. And the police need to know about this, because I don't know if they know that they're acting unlawfully or illegally. There's unlawful and then there's illegal. So I think they're pretty much two different things. If anyone can elaborate down below, because my brain is just not working right now, please do. Okay, guys, you'll find my PayPal down below. If you'd like to help support the channel, it's okay if you can't. I really do understand just watching, listening, sharing, commenting, and some of you guys helping me, giving me information. I really appreciate that too. Also, I'm having trouble. I don't know how to work Twitter. I'm just working it out, I think. If I haven't commented back or loved your comment, I apologise. The same as Facebook, I'm not getting around to everything. It's just, there's a lot going on. Anyway, guys, I do appreciate you all. I do try to read everything that I can that you send me, and your emails, your messages, your Facebook responses, your tweets, your comments in here. I do try to at least read every single one of them and let you know that I've read it by giving you a heart. And anyway, guys, okay, you take care and stay safe and stay calm. And they're not allowed to do this. They're not allowed to do this. I'll talk to you soon anyway, guys. Have a good one. Bye.